welcome back to Wine and Chill, your home for all things legal shenanigans and millennial adulting. I'm Stephanie, and today we are going to go over a requested topic, which is law school applications. So this request is from A. Pooney, so thank you for requesting this, and I hope I'm saying my name properly. If not, you can let me know in the comments. So yes, it has been a while, but this is super important. The law school application process can seem very daunting. I'm sure, well, I'd hope that there were a lot of YouTube videos on this. When I did it, I basically just asked around a bunch of people, including my guidance counselor, who kind of gave me their opinion. And having survived and being on the other end of it, being a practicing attorney, I figured, since you guys requested this, that we could talk about it, and I'll walk you through my 7 tips that hopefully will help you with your law school application. So the first tip being is you really, and something that I didn't do fully, transparently in hindsight, take a step and really assess, do you want to go to law school? Do you want to be a lawyer? It's really important that you assess that for yourself before you go down this, what can be a very expensive process, a very time-consuming process. And everyone's answer will be different, but not did your parents tell you to be a lawyer? Did your guidance counselor tell you it's a good idea? Do you want to do that for yourself? With that being said, I have a whole video, I'll link in the cards as well as in the description box, titled Is Law School Worth It? Highly recommend you watch that video. There are some tips in there that will really walk you through the process of how to get to the end result for you, which may be a yes, maybe a no, maybe a later, but that's the first and foremost thing I would definitely do. So the second thing is the law school application process is all about organization. So if you're a visual person, or even if you're not a visual person, I highly recommend you map out all the dates on a calendar that you can see every day. So put it on your fridge, put it in your planner, put it somewhere you can see it. So by the dates, I mean the important ones. So you're the dates of your LSAT. I would schedule 2 LSAT dates on the calendar. So I believe, trying to remember, I took it twice. So definitely, I would say definitely take it at least twice, unless the first time you get the score that you really want. It doesn't hurt, just take it twice. They'll give you the average of the score. Definitely prepare as best as possible for both, which we'll talk about. But so schedule 2 LSAT dates. Also write on your calendar that you can see the deadlines for the early decision, early action deadlines. The earlier to apply, the more scholarship money you're likely eligible for. So definitely write that out, as well as give yourself personal deadlines. Like, when do you want, if your application is due, for example, I'm making up date. If your application is due March 1st, when do you want to finish your personal statement by? Write down that deadline, and then on your calendar, write it in a week before. So say your application is actually due on March 1st or February 23rd. That's technically a week before. That way you give yourself a buffer just in case you accidentally procrastinate. Life happens, things happen. The deadline is not going to change. Whether or not, things happen in your life, the deadline does not care about you. So write that down. That'll just make you feel calmer, make you feel more secure. So I highly suggest mapping out those dates. Usually the whole process, depending on when you start, will take about 4 months. So what I would do, and what I did, I think I did in a planner back in the day. I can't remember. If I could do it now, I'm really big, like you guys, if you're on this page, you're probably familiar with like my student loan payoff that I'm doing now. I put everything on my fridge. It's easier to visualize. So if you're gonna do the law school application, I highly suggest you putting on your fridge the 4 months that it's gonna take for the application process. That way you can see like a screenshot of everything every day. Or you can make it the background on your phone, whatever easier for you, just somewhere where you can see it so it's top of mind. Highly recommend that. So the next thing that's super important, number 3, is going to be LSAT Prep. You not need because it's expensive. I recommend personally that you take an LSAT Prep course. I took Blackstone. Lord, this is this is so long ago that I had a different email when this occurred, so I can't even look through my email to go find what course I took. Take a law school LSAT Prep course. 2 reasons. So before you even take the LSAT Prep course and you sign up, look at the school. There are a lot of schools now that don't even require the LSAT. So assess whether the schools that you want to apply to, whether or not they require the LSAT. If they don't, then you don't need to take the course. You don't take the test. Most schools still favor the LSAT. So you're gonna have to probably take it. So with that, if you have to take the LSAT, definitely take the LSAT Prep course. I knew some people that were like, oh, I'm just gonna do it by myself. The LSAT is a very annoying, very weird test that has nothing to do with law school, has nothing to do with anything. It's a problem solving skills test. Like random word problems, there's like math in there. The thing is annoying to the point where like I've blocked it out of my memory. So just take the course that will prepare you. The course is basically run by people who have gotten like almost perfect scores on the test. People who like to take tests run these courses. The prep will be boring. I'm not gonna lie. It's not anything riveting. There's no like rote memorization. You're not gonna learn anything about the law. It's literally problem solving. I'm gonna put it to you this way. There is no proven correlation between your LSAT score and then your law school GPA. Similarly, there's no correlation between your law school GPA and then the amount of income you earn post law school. Remember that. Don't be discouraged if your LSAT score is not perfect, is not what you want it to be. The way law school admissions work, the lower your LSAT score, the higher your GPA needs to be. The lower your GPA, the higher the LSAT score. Obviously, ideally, both of them will be super high. So it's a balancing act, it's a fluctuation. So if you do average on your LSAT, but then you have 4.0 GPA, it's perfectly fine. And then you're also, president of a club, like you volunteer, you've interned, at 3 law firms. Don't stress yourself out too much about it. Definitely take the prep class. It will help you. Trying to teach yourself that foolishness on your own will just add more to your plate. Most likely you're in college or you're working. Either or, you don't want to go learn a whole new set of things and there's no point. There's no point trying to learn a whole new set of something just to use it for one exam to then forget it. I have no recollection of that because it's pointless. It has nothing to do with my everyday life. Think of it like Algebra 2. Do you use Algebra 2 every day? No, you don't. It's pointless. But you need that to then, move on in school. So think of the LSAT that way. All right, number 4, which I try to do everything early and be super punctual besides like physically being there on time. I actually usually am pretty on time. Every once in a while I'm like late, but I try to be like super punctual about things. It just makes things easier. There are 2 types of people. People that arrive to the airport an hour and a half, 2 hours early, and people that arrive 20 minutes before their flight and run through the airport. Now, outside of what type of person you are, when it comes to your law school application, make sure you just do everything early. You'll feel better about it. It'll be easier. Specifically things that are dependent on other people. So your recommendations. Your recommendation is dependent on the person that's writing it, their schedule. So do not wait till last minute to go ask somebody like, oh, hey, Professor so-and-so, can you write me this recommendation a week before it's due? Because they're gonna look at you and say, of course, you're such a wonderful student. And they're gonna do it when they feel like doing it. And you don't know if they're a procrastinator. So when you are writing out, so back to point 2 about putting everything on your calendar so you can see it, put your recommendations first because you're probably gonna have to ask these people 2 or 3 times. Even if like they're the most timely, well-meaning person because it's not top of mind for them. So who do you want your recommendations from? Definitely ask them from professors that you've gotten a good grade in, of course. Someone that you have some type of like interpersonal relationship with that kind of knows you. I asked my recommendation from my sociology professor because I did my thesis with her. I also presented my research on racial miscegenation in the US with her at a conference and the impacts of that. So she knew me personally. She knew what I was interested in. We had some talking points. So that was good. Definitely ask somebody. If you've worked in any type of legal internship, ask, the attorney that you worked for to write it. That's a great recommendation as well. People will do like the generic guidance counselor in college. I only went to the guidance counselor to find out how the heck to apply to law school because I was first generation law student. That's what I figured you did because in middle school and high school, I don't know, I was always close to my guidance counselor. That's the only time I ever spoke to him. He was lovely, my college guidance counselor, but it's not like it's somebody you see on a regular or even yearly basis. They're there in their office. They likely service thousands of students depending on what school you go to. So the recommendation from letter is not from them wouldn't necessarily be the strongest. You want it from somebody who kind of knows you a little bit and knows, that can sell you to the law school, basically. That's what you want. So number 5, so you have to write a personal statement with your law school applications. You can write it on anything. They'll usually give you a prompt. I don't remember exactly what mine was on, but I do remember it was a landmark case. I can't remember if it was Brown versus Board of Education or something that I tied into a community service project that I did and why it meant something to me. I feel like that's what it was. I don't particularly remember, but it did really well. I got very good reviews for it from like my professors that reviewed it. I also had some friends reviewed it. You can write it on. I think that that's a really good segue. So for example, let's use Brown versus Board of Education as the example. If you are going to use a landmark case, you can tie it into how that impacts your personal life, how that impacts, a service project you worked on, how you see parallels to certain things like in current society, things like that. So that way you're kind of using, what you know a little bit about legal writing, but the personal statement actually is less legal writing and more so persuasive essay, I would say. So when you get to law school, you'll realize legal writing is a very specific thing. There's no fluff. It's very to the point, very fact-based. They use an IRAC formula: issue, rule, analysis, conclusion. I still remember that. Wow. It's only amazing I still remember that because I don't do litigation. I'm a transactional attorney, so in contracts, you don't use the IRAC. You don't use the IRAC format, but you do use it when you are doing litigation. Anywho, so your personal statement, I would, in my opinion, you should draft it. Have your peers look at it. So if you have someone close to you that's in English, just for grammatical errors, things of that nature, but also have your professor or the lawyer that is writing your recommendation also look at it. They can give you feedback, as well as they can kind of get a glimpse into things that matter to you. So then they can incorporate that into their recommendation. So everything can tie in together. You want it to be a package where it's like, okay, Stephanie is, this type of person. She's interested in these things. This is what she's done with herself. Oh, her resume says that she, does a lot of philanthropy. She, volunteers at these places. Oh, she works 3 jobs, like blah, 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 blah. You want everything to tie in together. So that way it's a holistic package. That way the application committee can vouch for you, because basically the way that law school applications work, they put people into piles. So like if you don't meet the minimum threshold for GPA or for LSAT, most likely they'll just throw it out. Then once they throw it out, then they have, so it's like, okay, we made it to round 2. Then they start looking at your holistic, like, okay, what does this person do? Like, what is their interesting background? Did they take a year off from school? Oh, they did Peace Corps. Oh, they did this. Like, okay, they would be a great add to, Harvard because of et cetera, et cetera. Oh, they went to Princeton, like whatever, what have you. Then they start looking at those things. So you want to make sure you meet the minimum requirements and then do all that. I know we are going off a little bit tangent about the personal essay, but with that being said, don't disqualify yourself. Apply to the schools that you want, which leads into point 6, which is you should do a list of all the schools you're interested in and then do a cost benefit analysis of, can I afford this school? Do I want to borrow $225,000 to go to law school? Do I want to owe that much money? What does the average student coming from this institution make in salary 1 to 3 years post-graduation? Is that enough to pay this back? And if I could go back, I would have asked, because then I'm not sure if I would have transferred. I would have still transferred, but maybe I would have thought about it a different way. I don't know. It would have probably changed some things in my life because I did transfer law schools. That's also another option, which we can talk about that if you want to. Let me know in the comments. It's very specific, so like maybe I can tie that into something else about the process of transferring law schools and how that works and why it can be advantageous if you don't get into the school that you want to go originally. It is a risky game that only works if you get the grades to transfer. Putting that out there. But with that being said, career placement stats are super important. So if the school that you're looking at doesn't have all the statistics listed on how much their graduates are making out of law school, you can call them. You can ask the registrar for that information. You want to go to a school that you're going to learn from. All the curriculums are very similar, that has a strong alumni base, but more importantly, that places their students in jobs that you're interested in and also in high salaried positions that will pay you enough to pay back the damn money that you borrowed. If you get a full ride, this will not apply to you, which will be freaking great, and you can do whatever you want to do. if you don't get a full ride, you need to really assess from the beginning how much is this going to cost, because most people don't assess it. Next thing you know, 10, 15 years, you still owe 6 figures of loans, and now you have a mortgage and you have kids, and life is hectic. You don't need that. Don't do that to yourself. So the last thing being, which I kind of hinted at in the beginning, to organize yourself, to make sure everything is listed out in a way that you won't miss any of the deadlines. Apply early. Make sure you apply as early as possible. Scholarship money is given out in the beginning to the people that they see and that are impressive, so that person can and should be you. So apply as early as possible. That way you find out early enough, that way you can make an informed decision on what school you want to go to, and not just at the end of the day be like, oh, I only got into 2 schools, I guess this is the only option. If you apply early, you will have more options. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and like and subscribe, and let me know if you have any questions specifically about the application process, and yeah, that I didn't answer. Happy to answer those for you. I would say the most important thing is to assess whether or not you actually want to go to law school, and then just be organized. Organization will go the longest way.